over to
Like Sandra said, it's really difficult to get this mic out of my hands, but we're almost near the end. Folks, if you turn to your programs, you'd see that all of the awards have already been allocated, which is why you may be wondering why we're still up here. And to explain that, I'd love to introduce for one more time the Vice President Finance and Operations, Maya McHale, to say something a little bit special about maybe a previous VP Finance and Operations.
Hi everyone. If you noticed that I was a little nervous during the scholarships, it's kind of just because I'm really nervous to get emotional saying this. Before we close out this year, we want to take a moment to recognize someone who's very special to this organization and the campus community. For those who may not know, Sam Mora has served, the UWSA for 3 years. First as Vice President of Finance and Operations, and most recently as President. But what matters isn't the positions that he's held, it's what he did with them. Ahead of our final presidential send-off, we want to take a moment to acknowledge not just the person behind this organization, but also the person who made our work possible. To present this, I want to please welcome Yosh and Tasia up to the stage before we continue on with this meeting.
Hassan went well beyond the call of duty, not just this year, but in the last 3 years, serving every Lancer with integrity, care, and compassion. Day after day, long night after night, Hassan has embodied the very essence of student leadership, commitment to seeing his peers succeed, and setting the bar so high that NASA's Artemis II would have a hard time catching up.
From VP Finance and Operations, dealing with the chaos that is over 200 student groups on campus, to President, which is arguably worse because he had to deal with Laura Hamza and myself on a daily basis, and all of our shenanigans. Hassan's commitment to the UWSA isn't some arbitrary pastime that exists in a vacuum.
If you know anything about Hassan, it's that his passion runs deep. The moment he sets a goal, lays his eyes on a new milestone, or gets some crazy new idea that'll drive real change, he drops everything and practically devotes his heart and soul to seeing it through.
That's the type of person our president is. One of convinced loyalty, selflessness, and never-ending desire to help the next person. Over these past few months, every one of us in this room has seen first-handedly his relentless nights working on just about everything and anything to make all of our portfolios possible. The only thing that mattered to Hassan was making sure that our Lancers were a part of a real community, something bigger than just education, but a real family that we're proud to be a part of.
Honestly, it's easy to just sit here and say a bunch of words about Hassan, but what isn't easy is having something to look back on, a reference sheet of sorts, walking you through the real tangible impacts Hassan has had, not just on the UWSA, but on the institution at large. From Senate to societies, 1,000 committees that no one understands the acronyms for, event after event and luncheons too, there's no shortage of Hassan's presence on this campus that hasn't been experienced.
Hassan is not a performative leader. He doesn't choose titles. He doesn't build to-do lists for the sake of appearances. Everything he does is intentional. Every decision, every late night, every conversation, it always comes back to one thing. How do we make student life better in a real and lasting way? If you've worked with him, you've seen it. The long nights, the constant follow-ups, the refusal to accept just good enough. He carries a level of responsibility that most people wouldn't take on, and he does it because he genuinely believes that if students are given the right support, they will succeed. That belief is what defines Hassan. He understands the importance that a student has to thrive, and that he knows that it's hard for a student to thrive if they're not supported, and that mindset shapes everything that he does.
As Vice President of Finance and Operations, he completely redefined what it meant to be a student group on this campus. Hubs went from being small, isolated organizations to becoming platforms for real impact because of the systems, funding structures, and support he built around them.
And then there are the results. Club funding increased by over 60% and scholarships increased by over 280% in just 3 years because he knew how to get creative with UWSA funding allocations. New partnerships including the launch of Roddick Hall with the UWSA Lounge, expanded student services across the campus. Seriously, the all-you-can-eats are $20. The first ever initiatives from sustainability competitions to the regional ethics bowls become a part of the university's story. He led the charge advocating against Bill 33 and cuts to OSAP. He made sure we all had a place to call home by launching equity collectives with support from the VP Student Advocacy, and it didn't stop there. He expanded a number of services, including TD Meloche, Nimbus, Via Rail, and Enrich Academy, to name a few. And yes, he helped bring something to Windsor that most people would have said was impossible.
The NLE Tropical Windsor. It's Windsor. People don't expect moments like that. But Hassam did, because to him, the goal was never to accept what the school is. It was to push towards what it could be, to show students, and frankly everyone else, what this campus is capable of. And that's exactly what he did.
But if there's one thing that his presidency is, it's what he did when it mattered most. When students were facing financial pressures, when institutions were tightening constraints, Hassam didn't step back, he stepped up. He established the $50K Student Support Fund to provide real, immediate support for students who needed it. And then, in what can only be described as his final act as president, he went even further.
He worked around the clock in our most recent elections to pass a student referendum that would permanently change how this organization supports its students. Passing with over 95% approval, he single-handedly reallocated funding to create tens of thousands of dollars in long-term sustainable scholarships. This wasn't some one-time initiative or a temporary solution. It's part of the legacy he leaves behind today. And that's what separates Hassam. He doesn't just solve problems for today, he builds systems that will continue to support students long after he's gone. Hassam's impact is immeasurable, and opportunities created, barriers removed, and futures made possible.
So tonight, we don't just recognize Hassam as a president. We recognize a leader who redefined what the role could be. And to ensure that the impact continues to grow, we are proud to now establish a scholarship called the Legacy Scholarship based on who Hassam is as a person, recognizing his long-lasting impact on student life at the University of Windsor. This scholarship will be awarded annually to a student who reflects the same qualities Hassam demonstrates every day: leadership, integrity, and commitment to others, as well as a relentless drive to create a meaningful change.
So, on behalf of the UWSA, thank you, Hassam. Please join us to accept this recognition.
enough